Welcome to the VCA Voice Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Marie Curl. Join us as we dive into inspirational stories about our caring and capable associates and their commitment to guiding healing journeys for our patients. Our discussions explore the important ways VCA Animal Hospitals proactively supports the future of veterinary medicine through leading the industry in medical excellence and providing hometown care to our communities. On today's episode, I'm happy to welcome Dr. Julia Georgesen. Dr. Georgesen is the Vice President of Strategic Sourcing for Mars Veterinary Health. Hi, Julia. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really happy that you can join. I've wanted to have you on as a guest for a while now, so this is great. I'm going to jump right in. I'd like for you to tell me a little bit about your career journey and when you knew you wanted to be a veterinarian.
I graduated from veterinary school from Purdue University in 2000, but I wanted to be a veterinarian since I can remember. I really had no other career path besides doing that. My next door neighbor when I was growing up was a veterinarian. He owned a small animal practice in Evansville, Indiana. And we were great family friends. And he would always have myself and his son to the clinic. And so that's really where my journey started. I always joke that the only jobs I've had out of veterinary medicine were when I was a camp counselor for the YMCA. And when I worked at the Gap. So other than that, every job I had, whether it was volunteering at a clinic, working at Bristol Myers Squibb in the summers in their histopathology lab, all my jobs and all my interest really was with being a veterinarian. So that's really kind of was my singular focus.
Tell me more about that summer job of the histopathology lab. How did that come about?
I was in veterinary school and outside of Evansville in Mount Vernon, Indiana, Bristol Myers Squibb had a pathology lab. And at that time, there was a lot of different things I was interested in and explored as far as what type of veterinarian I wanted to be. And at that time, I was interested in pathology.
Okay.
And I made some contacts there, and they had 3 or 4 pathologists on staff, and they were great with me. And I learned a lot. I actually worked in the histopathology lab. So I learned a lot about anatomy at that point and collecting different tissues and, how they processed them and prepared them and looked at them underneath the microscope to look for various diseases. So involved a lot of different animals.
That must have really supported you in your education as well. I thinking back to that time when I was in school, it seemed like it would have been really helpful to have had that extra background.
It was really interesting. And I mean, they really accepted me with open arms. They had me back for a couple summers and I learned a lot there as far as anatomy. A lot of it, was in research around mice and rats. And I learned a whole wealth of knowledge there as far as how research projects happen and just a lot about anatomy. And they let me come into a lot of the labs. And now when I'm sitting here thinking back on it, they really did a lot to really pique my interest in different areas. So that was a great summer job.
Oh, and that's wonderful. And it still is all connected with everything that you do professionally as well. So
yeah.
Now, what happened after graduation and you owned your own practice and became a practice owner? So what was that like?
So after graduation, I actually did a large animal internship at the Marion DuPont Equine Center in Virginia. And so it is associated with Virginia Tech, but it is run almost like a standalone clinic. And it is a lot of 3-day event horses that would come there. And even though I didn't pursue going forward with that, I was interested in equine surgery. I still learned a lot of skills that whenever I did go into small animal medicine, I did a lot of suturing of large lacerations of equine. So I learned that.
Right. Horses do get into trouble, don't they?
They do. There are a lot of fence impalements. So I learned a lot when I worked there and was able to still use that knowledge. So I did that first. And then I moved back to the Midwest and I knew I wanted to live in a big city. So my choices were Indianapolis or Chicago. And I moved to Chicago and I actually started at VCA Berwyn.
Oh, okay.
But that was outside of the city. And it was a big commute. It was about an hour every day there and an hour home. But I really loved my time at VCA Berwyn, but I was 26 and I wanted to live in the city and work in the city. So then I started at a independent small animal practice that had been in the community since 1952, Blum Animal Hospital, and I started there as an associate in 2002. And when I was in school, I never had the mindset of being a practice owner. As we've talked through this, I was interested in pathology. I was interested in zoo medicine. I feel like I went to vet school at a very, at a younger age. And so you're exploring all the different options. So I had never really considered practice ownership, but I had really found my place at Blum. It was a busy general practice clinic that was open 6 days a week. We did a lot of even more advanced medicine and surgery. And I loved the clientele. It was a very diverse clientele. I mean, we saw everything from college students to celebrities in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned a lot there. And after a couple of years, they approached me and said, we're really interested in having you become a partner. And I really thought about that. And I thought, well, I want to figure that out. I love being here. And if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that opportunity at the end of 2006. And then I owned the clinic with 2 or 3 partners, and we owned it till 2017. And then my partner and I sold the clinic to Mars Vet Health.
What were the best parts and also the biggest challenges with owning your own practice?
I'd say the best parts were really getting to build your own culture. It was great to be able to make the decisions, but then the flip side of that is having the pressure of having to, make the decisions, and they weren't always easy decisions. But, I think the best part in general, whether you're an owner of a clinic or not, is the teamwork and the camaraderie that builds in a clinic. When you have a really high functioning team,
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows their place, and there's such just a love of the pet and wanting to do the right thing. I just think there's so many superheroes in our field, whether it is a service specialist, someone in the kennel, or the technicians. I mean, I think everyone goes into it for the right reasons. Everyone has a big heart. And to me, what I miss the most about not being in a practice, honestly, is the teamwork. And I think it's always nice at the end of the day to know how much you accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
You did a big surgery, you saw so many cases, you made a difference in people's lives. I always thought, even though it was tiring, you always knew every day that you made a difference.
When you and your partner made the decision to sell your practice, did you stay in the practice and keep working, or did you step out at that time, and what happened next?
I did stay in the practice. So whenever we went through that process, I had been part of VMG, which is Veterinary Management Group. And you learn a lot about business there. It's a lot of independent owners, but they're not in your same geographic area. So you don't have that competition, but you get to have that camaraderie with other veterinarians who own their own practice, and you learn from each other. So there was a small group of us out of that management group that decided to explore the process of selling. And I learned a lot.
Uh-huh.
And it was really important to me to sell to a company or group that was in it for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt was in it for the right reasons, and that my staff would still be able to thrive. And so then after I sold, at the time, I sold to Pet Partners, which was one of the Mars Veterinary Health brands.
Right.
And then that rolled into VCA. So my clinic is a VCA clinic now. And I stayed in the clinic for a year. And then I had been given the opportunity to leave and help within our network with acquisitions for a little bit. So I did that for a period of time, and then joined the commercial team at VCA.
So what is being a part of the commercial team first at VCA, and then that team became a Mars Veterinary Health team? What does that involve?
So my role is I am in charge of direct sourcing. So what that means is any of the pharmaceuticals, so any of the veterinary medications, nutrition, so dog and cat food, medical equipment, exam tables, ultrasounds, medical supplies such as catheters, sutures, and our point of care diagnostics. So the blood work that we do in the hospital, that all falls underneath my team.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're really trying to do is obviously get our hospitals the best of what is out on the market. And when I say the best, it doesn't just mean the best price. People often think that, but as you know, it's really important too that we have the best quality products. I'm very proud to work for a company where quality really matters. We want the best products. We want to have good partnerships with our large suppliers. And we also are concerned with sustainability and, protecting our planet. And then we also want to make sure that the supply chain is there, meaning that we don't run out of products. And that was really important, as we all know, during COVID. So we work to do that too. So, my team is really responsible for ensuring all those things for our hospitals. And I am really proud to say, too, on our commercial team, we do have 2 veterinarians and a veterinary technician on that team. And then there are some veterinary technicians throughout our buying or purchasers. And so I just think it's really interesting because it's a different career path that maybe people don't think of. But I think we have a good mix of true sourcing or procurement people on our team, and then also have that mixed in with people that have been part of the hospital. And I think that's really great because we can kind of marry both of those to really understand better what the hospitals need.
I'll also point out that you have some engineers on your team, which doesn't seem like it would be a good fit in veterinary medicine. But as we look at really, especially the large pieces of equipment that go into specialty hospitals, like how do we provide supplemental oxygen for our patients or have specialty surgical equipment, their expertise has been really refreshing to look at the offerings that are out there and make sure that we're getting the best quality that we can, because often we're buying items that are from human healthcare as well as veterinary medicine.
Yeah, and I think that's always surprising to people, right? I think that
surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, because we use CTs, MRIs that a lot of people are familiar with, even linear accelerators, for the treatment of cancer in pets.
Right.
So I think it's always surprising to people what we're able to kind of extrapolate and use from human healthcare to provide the best care and treatment options to our pets.
You and I often touch base about our industry partners supporting animal health and as well as the veterinary team. What can you share with me about being good partners both directions, and how does that align with the mutuality principle at Mars?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because we do often hear from our partners that they really like dealing with our team or our group of hospitals because we do want it to be mutual. I mean, we want to have partners that can help us and aid us in our journey to make a better world for pets. So I think to be a good partner is to look at the big picture and that they work with us through both great profitable times in the clinics and sometimes they work with us through different challenges and they're supportive of us. They help keep items in stock for us, help us with the supply chain. And I think really great partners help us solve bigger problems in veterinary medicine besides just the products. I always love the different training that they'll provide. I remember when I owned a practice, having a company come in and provide a personality test. I know it sounds crazy, but even just, knowing what your teammate that maybe they're more of an introvert and to talk to them this way. And then, someone else has these personality traits. And I know it seems silly, but to have companies help sponsor and kind of lead us through those things just helps bring awareness of how we can work together better. And it's nice whenever they can bring some of those things to the table as well.
Yeah, the animals actually are the easy part in veterinary medicine.
Exactly.
But there's always people that are involved. And that can be more challenging. I think we all learn and grow through our lives with working with one another. So that's a great call out. You have some credentialed veterinary technicians on your commercial team. How important is it to have that role represented?
Very important. I think it's funny because they'll often, people ask me questions about equipment or medical supplies. And it's like, well, I don't know. When I owned a hospital, I got what the veterinary technicians wanted, right? They know what they need to do the best job. And I think you and I are both hyper aware of that. And I think to have their opinions and to have them sitting in the room to really talk to us about what equipment works best and what's easiest to use and what makes the animal the most comfortable, before and after maybe a major procedure or treatment. I mean, I don't know what we would do without that knowledge. I mean, I just feel like they really have insight into that. Or when we look at medical supplies, I feel like they know better than us what type of catheters that we should be using, what type of needle and syringes are the easiest to use and are the most comfortable for the pet. So, I really couldn't speak more highly about veterinary technicians. I have several, as I'm sure you do, that are lifelong friends. And I think they are the unsung heroes in our profession, especially when you think back on when you were a new grad and what you learned from the technicians that worked beside you.
Yes.
It takes a lot of patience, I think, on the veterinary technician side.
Yep. And to be able to do that in a politically correct way.
Yes,
them.
Exactly.
And try to be the safety net for your patients.
And to help protect the patients from us sometimes. So I just, I really love having technicians on our team. And a lot of times, I think what people don't know is they play so many different roles in the hospital besides the fact that they are working with the patients and taking care of them. Many times, unless you're in a very large hospital, many times they are the ones actually doing the purchasing of all the products as well. And so that is why we really love to have that insight and have them be part of the commercial team because, they are wearing many different hats. And a lot of times they are the purchasers and inventory managers for the practice.
Now, when you were talking earlier, you said something about sustainability. So how do our partners join with us to promote our sustainability efforts?
I feel like we definitely have great partners in sustainability. And I think it would be surprising maybe to a lot of people to know that a lot of the pharmaceutical companies and a lot of the laboratory companies already have sustainability departments, right? And they're very keen to partner with us. And I've seen a lot of changes, as I'm sure you have over the years, even as far as in packaging, where I can think of a particular product that used to be packaged with 4 to a pack and in a cardboard box. And now they've made it a roll. And then you cut off how much that you need for that pet, whether it's an antibiotic or an anti-nausea. And so I think there's small things like that do make a difference. If you think about all the clinics there are and all that product going out, it does make a difference. And I think one of the really great things that Mars has done across our 3 banners is partnering with our distributor as far as delivery of totes. And what that means is when a hospital would receive shipments, for years, we received many cardboard boxes, as you know, many days of the week. They sit in the hallway. We've all tripped over them.
Yes.
And then they get unpacked and then you want to recycle the cardboard. But it's a lot of cardboard generated every week at a clinic. And what we've done is partner with our distributor partner to, number one, really consolidate our orders. So to have less orders coming to the hospital every week. And then on top of that, as opposed to using cardboard, we use totes. It kind of reminds me of if you've ever had your mail put on hold and then they deliver it in one of their big totes that they have. It's kind of a plastic tote. And then they swap that out weekly and take it back and deliver the products in that tote weekly. And it has just cut down tremendously on the amount of cardboard that we use. And we're not even done yet. So I think that's really something that we can all get behind.
I'm going to change tack here a little bit, and I'd really like to learn more about the charitable work you're involved in. Tell me what you're doing in that space.
The reason that I wanted to get involved in charitable work, I always thought about it, in my head whenever I owned a practice that I wanted to do more in that space. And I just didn't feel like at that point in my life that I had the time to pursue that. And I just feel like I've gotten a lot from veterinary medicine, and I really felt like it was important to give back. And I'm involved in 2 different organizations. The first is the Banfield Foundation. And as you know, there's a VCA Charities, there's the Blue Pearl charitable arm, and then there's the Banfield Foundation. And what I really wanted to be involved with them is just their mission really is to remove barriers to care and to help mobilize veterinary teams to areas that either is more what we call veterinary desert. They just don't have access to care, or that they can't afford to take their pet to vet. And I think the Banfield Foundation has touched on everything from working in big metro areas to also working in Arizona on the Indian reservation. And also, I always think it's surprising that people don't realize, but a lot of us think of Hawaii as a vacation spot. But for a lot of people that live there, there's also not as much access to care there. And we were really involved after the fires that, really ravaged Maui.
Yes.
So there's a lot of opportunities for people in our clinics to be able to give back, and they sponsor what they call the Mars Ambassador Program. But really, it's people in all of our business units are able to go and volunteer on some of those different trips that are organized. But, what they want to do is really help vulnerable pets. I think last year, I was just looking at the stats that they helped 1.4 million vulnerable pets and awarded 500 plus grants. They even helped donate vans to some large shelter programs throughout the U.S. to help with access to care. And then my other nonprofit that I'm interested in that we are going to get you to come on a trip is over in Africa. It is for a small nonprofit group that's called Africa Network for Animal Welfare, but we're going through a large rebranding, and it is going to be called Alliance for Human-Animal Coexistence. But they are focused in three main areas. So it's farm, wildlife, and domestic pets.
Okay.
So I'm more involved on the domestic pet side, and the trips that I've been on, and then a trip that I led, both times were to Tanzania, and it was to provide vaccinations, mainly rabies being the big one. We also do deworm pets at that time and provide some flea and tick prevention for the pets, but it's really to help prevent rabies because it is such a huge problem, especially in other parts of the world with people contracting rabies.
How was that experience of working in Tanzania?
It was interesting. It's very rewarding. Part of the reason I want to get involved is I love travel. I love learning about different cultures and seeing how other people live and seeing how they interact with their pets. So that has just been very rewarding and interesting, and also getting to meet new people from all over the world. The last time that I went to Tanzania, we worked in an area that was very rural, and really it had started with one guy had started a small nonprofit because he had seen some animal abuse, and it was around fear of people with an animal that had possibly contracted rabies. And he started telling his friends whenever they would go out, hey, instead of buying me a beer, why don't you donate money so I can buy some vaccines and help vaccinate dogs? And he started doing this in 2018. So fast forward to 2024, but he has mobilized large vaccination clinics, and we were the first out of the country group that came and helped. But the reason that it was so impactful in this area is there was a time where parents wouldn't let their kids walk to school because there were so many rabid dogs in that area. And we were there last April, and they hadn't had a case of rabies in 6 months, and everyone had been able to be out and taking their kids to school. And just the clinic we did alone in one day, I think we vaccinated about 400 or 500 cats and dogs. So it really does make a difference in those areas where rabies is still very prevalent, and it really impacts their life.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. And we'll make sure to put the website for this organization in the show notes in case people are interested in learning more and perhaps volunteering to go on a trip.
Yeah, that's great. And you don't have to be a veterinarian or a veterinary technician. All are welcome. And they do trips about every 6 months to different areas of Africa. And a lot of it, like I said, centers around, people always wonder if we do spay and neuter, but maybe in the future, something like that would come next. But the first thing is really to help provide vaccinations to help prevent the spread of disease, as you mentioned earlier.
Well, Julia, we're nearing the end of our time together. And since you've traveled some different paths with your career, what advice would you give for veterinarians who are considering a change?
I think building relationships and being open to a change is probably the most important. I mean, I think you can try to plan ahead, but as we all know, like that's
never worked for me.
Yeah, me neither. Like people are like, oh, what do you want to do? You really have to be clear about it. You've got to have this path. And like, I know that works for some people. It just hasn't been my route. I mean, I even remember when I started on the commercial team, I was in the middle of moving from Chicago to Austin, Texas, and they asked if I wanted to join. And I thought, why not? Let's give it a try. And then it's just led to this great journey over the last 6 or 7 years since I left private practice. So I think really engaging with people and building your network and staying curious would be the advice that I would give. But I think, if you're not happy in your current state, as you and I both know, I mean, there's so many different ways that you can learn and get different education in different areas, and just a lot of different ways that you can meet and interact with different people to learn more. And I feel like we're such a friendly group that I think if you put yourself out there and really explore that, we can all find something that really speaks to us in this great profession.
Well, Julia, it has been an absolute delight to speak with you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this, and I'm glad we finally got the chance to do it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it and learned a few helpful tips. If you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe and listen to our previous episodes to hear the many valuable insights and lessons from our past guests. Don't forget to leave a review for today's episode and share with friends. Make sure to follow VCA Animal Hospitals on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram to stay in the loop. For more inspiring stories, visit our website at vcavoice.com.